Thank you, Dr. Tim. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome and deserving. Have a wonderful show.
Thank you.
You were going to say something else?
I was just going to ask, you are still reading from the Choose Again 6 Steps?
Yes.
I know you're reading Diedrich, but okay.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep. Diedrich Wolzak's book, Choose Again.
Awesome. Okay.
All right. Blessings.
Thank you. So welcome, everybody, to the second hour of Mindshifters Radio. And today is Monday. No, it's not. It's Wednesday, October the 11th, 2023. And our call-in number is 563-999-3581. And press 1. That puts you in the queue. And we'd love to hear your comments and questions because that makes this your show. We'll give Michael a moment to dial in. And I'll just say we did get the app updated for Google. And it looks like we're going to have to do it again for Apple. So if you'd like to support that, you can go to our website and click donations. And we would appreciate the support in keeping the app operational. There are several things coming up. Tomorrow is the second Thursday of the month, and so we'll have the Global Book Club, and they're going to be doing Chapter 10 of the book. They're moving through it. If you didn't catch the archive, the last meeting that they did, they actually walked through a very powerful worksheet with a young lady, and that's in the archives, so you can pick that up. Apologies for yesterday. Blog Talk had an issue. We couldn't call in on the host line or the call-in line, which I'm sure if several of you tried to call in, you got to either it just sat there and spun around and never rang through, or you got a quick busy signal. And I'm glad that they got that fixed so that we didn't have to miss another day. So we did not have a radio show yesterday. That hasn't happened too many times. Blog Talk's been pretty good about staying steady, and we are backing those up on a separate hard drive in case something happened and Blog Talk disappeared, that we would have all of those shows. Hopefully that will not happen because that would require a major change so that all of the links were redirected to our hard drive instead of to Blog Talk. We do have those going directly to the Blog Talk site, letting them host the recordings, because the more that we save onto our website, and it's already huge, the more that our cost for the server goes up. And so as much as possible, we either save it over to YouTube or to Vimeo, or we have them using them off of the Blog Talk site. But we do have a backup in case that ever happened, that we wouldn't lose all of the shows. We've been doing this for a long time, and we are thankful for Blog Talk. It's a very reasonable cost every month for us to keep that going. And I was just waiting to see Michael has joined us, so I'm going to welcome Michael.
Well, thank you, dear heart, and welcome, everybody. Delighted and honored that you're here, and honored to be able to carry this conversation on another day, making this level of understanding available on a global scale. And I was reading something this morning, and someone had written some pretty humorous how should I describe it? A rather humorous approach to what people have done to do healing. And they go through how they went to Peru and they did this, and they went to the shaman, and they went to the sound bath, and they went to the crystal bath, and they went to the this, and they took this drug, and they took that drug, and they did this, and they did colonics, and they did, I mean, it was just this whole list. And it was really, I mean, quite hilarious. Somebody had done some work to really put this whole list together. And in the last analysis, all you have to do is learn and do forgiveness, and everything else falls in place. Having done a lot of those things myself over the last 50 years, having gone to medical school to learn about healing, and learned little there compared to what I learned from this master healer, master physician, Yeshua, who 2,000 years ago laid the whole game out and said, here's how it works, folks. Here's what you have to do. And the extremes that people go to in order to try to recover sanity, in order to get back to functioning as a human being, are really pretty bizarre. And in a sense, sadly, because oftentimes people have tried so many things, and all of those things that they tried really just didn't get them very far. In fact, it did the reverse. People have tried, somebody said, this will work. And when they tried and tried and tried and tried, and quote unquote nothing seems to work, then when something that is workable comes along, oftentimes people ignore it or won't do it, because their thinking is, well, I've already tried everything. And so having already tried everything, why would I do something else? So people live in that world of, they made me mad, they got me upset, they scared me. Oh, what's happening in the world, that's the problem. And there's so many scams out there that try to show you how to deal with what's going on out there, when what needs to happen is to lead you back inside where the problem is. So when we wake up to the truth of who we are, we realize that everything is energy, and that we're energy, and that our perception is a reflection of the content or the energetic patterns within our own minds. Then we have a chance to change the game. And when you change the game, everything in physiology changes. But you can only change the game from the inside. You can fight and struggle to try and make it happen out there. That's not where it happens. And so we're here to make the key tool that Yeshua taught 2,000 years ago available literally to every mind, heart, and being on the planet. And we're glad you're here to be part of the conversation. And I'm actually looking, if I seem a little distracted, it's because I'm looking for that particular document. Pretty hilarious when you look at the list. When people don't want to step into forgiveness. Well, unfortunately, I'm not finding it, so I'll let that go. But I thought I could find it. Would be a fun read. So, Miss Jeannie, do we have anybody in the phone queue with a hand up, or anybody in the chat room with a thought for us, or maybe a question from the app?
I have not received any questions, and there's no questions in the chat room, and nobody has a hand up. So we have 52 minutes. Press 1 and let us know how you would like this conversation to go. And if you're on another station where we can't see you, 563-999-3581 and press 1. We'd love to hear from you.
Recognizing, probably one of the most difficult things for people to comprehend is that the world that we think we see through our eyes is an internal picture. Now, it's pretty easy. I mean, we can go into, people who've done research in the brain and all of that, and they'll explain that to us. But it's really pretty easy to prove to yourself that reality is the output of the mind. All you have to do is go to any event. It'll be more of an exacerbated result if the event is a traumatic one. And let's have 50 people stand around that event and watch it happen, and then interview all 50 people. Now, if the event were the cause of what happens inside of people, everybody would describe the same event. But you'll notice that the guy who was prejudiced against women points out that women are the problem, and the woman or the guy who's prejudiced against other guys or jealous of guys point out how that guy was the problem. And then you'll notice that, somebody who's got financial problems, they'll tell you how the problem was the financial pressure that the perpetrator was under, and everybody will have a different reality, a different construct coming from their minds. The thing to get is that perception, the constructs of your mind, have a quality. And there is a key signal that tells us when the quality is off base. And the key signal is inside of the system that is generating the problem in reality, there's some form of hostility or fear going on. And as long as there's some form of hostility or fear going on, there's a reason, because there's hostility or fear in the perceiving mind. And if we can guide that person back into the root of the hostility or fear within their own minds, then guess what happens? They'll delete, they'll remove, they'll forgive the hostility or fear from their minds. And I don't care what the situation is. It doesn't matter. And you say, well, but how does that help me? If I've got this terrible thing happening in my life, how does that help me? Well, one, I guarantee you're a much cleaner, clearer creator when you're connected to love, connected to hostility or fear. I guarantee you will resonate, you will draw to you will attract totally different circumstances, totally different behaviors, and totally different results in your life. And you'll have an upgraded intelligence level if you are in a trauma, a real, honest-to-God, traumatic problem situation. Then you're going to come to that situation rather than, Paul talked about 2,000 years ago, we see as though through a glass darkly. Cleaning your glass empowers you in ways that a person with a dirty glass can't imagine. That's all. It's just, it's just pretty simple and straightforward. And so the master tool for cleaning up the tar, the bug juice, impediments to accurate perception, the master key to cleaning it up is the ability to access the underlying cause of the gunk, the tar, the hostility, the fear, and to access that in the presence of active love. About 30 years ago, we're doing an intensive at Heartland. I'm still working to understand what it is that causes healing. I'm working with the first century Aramaic language, but I don't have a clue how or why it works, except that, it's got to do with canceling goals. I couldn't explain to you then what I can explain to you now about perception, the way the mind works, and the driver for perception, how to collapse it, and that gives you access to the underlying. I couldn't explain that, but I didn't know it. But I was very enthusiastically pursuing an understanding of what causes healing. We were doing an intensive, and there were several people who had some disturbed energies going on, and one person in particular was pretty dramatic. Our focus turned to that one person, And we went into the forgiveness process being very conscious of the movement of breath. And the result was so glaringly obvious. The shift in energy was just so blatant that nobody could miss it for one person in the room. And I'm asking, why didn't these other people get what that person got? Why didn't that shift happen for everybody in the room? What is it that causes healing? And what I was shown in that moment was that for healing to occur, two things have to happen. Remember, we're creators. Whatever we hold, we intensify, we send energy out into the world, and we produce results with that. If we hold hostility or fear, then we send energies of hostility or fear out to the world, and because the world works through resonance, resonance brings somebody right back to us with that energy. And most people choose to remain unconscious of the part of them that's engaged in sending out that energy. Why? Because it hurts. It's painful. It's disturbing. It's traumatizing to look at those things. But what I was shown in that particular intensive, when I inquired one more time, was that two things have to happen in order for healing to occur. One, the raw underlying energy that has been dissociated from, that produces the trauma, has to come forward in its original form, clear of all projections. You have to access the underlying energy. Two, there has to be the activity of conscious, active, present love in the space. When those two things occur, healing happens. That was a really key point. You know, at that point, I'd been doing the Aramaic forgiveness process for probably 12 years. I've been working to understand forgiveness. That was a core part of everything that I did. But I still did not understand why you would do such a silly, stupid, ridiculous thing. Even though I said, here it is. This is, when I first came in touch with the core of forgiveness, that it has to do, because perception is driven by goals, it has to do with canceling goals so that perception can be collapsed. And then what you collapse into is the original energy that needs to be exposed. I didn't understand that back then, but that was a core part of what we were doing, because over time I had introduced that idea of canceling goals to a number of people, and because of the feedback I got from it, it did not particularly impress me, but it was something that I would mention from time to time. And I'd have people who'd show up and say, Michael, I've been doing that goal canceling. That's really powerful. I was like, really? Okay. So I worked more and more with it. But it had probably been about a dozen years, but I did not understand. I did not have the brain cells to be able to explain the reason why you would cancel a perfectly good goal. But if you do it, what happens is the construct of your mind, the perception generated by your mind, collapses in on itself, and that, by definition, is access to the original energetic pattern behind the trauma, or behind the repeating traumas, behind the why is this happening to me again experience. So if one person in the space is holding to active present love, whoever opens the hidden parts of their trauma to themselves, that trauma begins to dissolve. There's one of the reasons why community is so powerful. It takes a significant amount of practice to hold love active and present in your mind while your trauma is moving. Many people can't do that for themselves. That's one of the purposes of this radio show. Because we have a whole cadre of people, not just Jeannie and myself, but a whole cadre of people who are there holding the space. And so whatever opens in my mind or your mind or Jeannie's mind in this conversation with this community of people, and by the way, because all matter is transparent to the most refined frequencies, and love is the most refined frequency there is, because all matter is transparent, space and time don't mean anything to the process. In other words, I can be here in Bristol, Virginia, and you can be in Toronto, Canada, and you're keying in, you've been in the practice, you're holding the space of love, and all of a sudden I get triggered into something, and I breathe, and I'm aware enough to know there's something I need to work on, and I look at the goal that I'm using to drive this, to keep this hidden from myself, and what surfaces in me, because the person in Toronto, Canada is part of this community and holding the space, brings healing to me, and vice versa. Why didn't everybody in the room that day experience the dramatic result that that one individual did? Well, remember, there are two components. Obviously, the love was present, and that individual was able to cancel out the goals that interfered with him directly accessing the hidden parts of his own mind. When those two things meet, there is a transmutation of energy. There is a shifting of the form of energy. And we call that healing. So ultimately, it doesn't matter what the underlying dynamic is. It doesn't matter how deep, dark, dirty, nasty, evil, wicked, whatever words you could use. It doesn't matter how black it is, how dark, how void of light it is. If light comes to it, the space is illuminated. We have this thing called a flashlight. The room is totally and completely dark, and I push the button on the flashlight, and bingo, it seems to disperse. Does the darkness disperse? No. Darkness is an absence. It's not a presence. So when one voids a part of their own physiology, a part of their own emotions, a part of their own mind from the presence of love or light, and that one cancels the goal, is keeping that trauma, that underlying energy, void of light, hidden, they open the window. In comes the light, and the absence is filled. So I invite you, if you're not doing worksheets, to really pick them up and put the pen to the paper and really make use of it. If you're not using it, you can go to our website, whyagain.org. That's whyagain.org, as in the title of my book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? First and last word. Whyagain.org. Upper left-hand corner says Start Here. Click the button. Start it working. You can download the worksheets. You can download videos, audios that explain how the worksheet works, how to use it, how to fill in the blanks. There are hundreds of hours of support for doing that. You can go to your app store on your phone. and type in the words Heartland, Heartland, one word, Heartland, Aramaic, Aramaic, forgiveness. And you'll be looking at the world's only forgiveness app. You can download that app free. It's purposely designed to be extremely private. And you can start to use the worksheet process right there on the app. And of course, if there are questions and confusion about how it works, what needs to be done, then we're here to support you in having access to that information. You can print off the worksheets from our website. There are a variety of worksheets. Over the years, I've worked with many different ideas on the worksheets and kind of refined it to what I, at least at this point, understand works best in terms of experience and watching people use it. Many people over the years have said what they like to do is they'd like to rotate and do different worksheets at different times. And that when they do that, they find that the shift in the energy of the worksheet helps to keep them moving forward, especially if they've hit a plateau and they've gotten stuck. What I finally came to understand is what I can now explain in just 2 minutes as to why you cancel a perfectly good goal. Because your goal is the driver for the perception that you have. And if you're hiding the root of your perception and there's pain in it, canceling the goal will expose the pain. When you expose the pain to love, it dissolves, that's all. It's transmuted. So we're here to hopefully transfer the understanding of that core tool to every mind, heart, and being on planet Earth. And we're delighted that you're here to be part of the conversation. So, Miss Jeannie, do we have anything happening in the chat room? Or anybody in the phone queue with a hand up?
No, Yinka's with us in the chat room. And
well, hi there, young lady. Welcome.
Waiting for you to come on, that tomorrow is the book club.
Let's talk about that a little bit. There is, our most recent book club meeting, we did a worksheet, a live worksheet. So it ended up being about a 2-hour session. And it was just some really poignant moments happened. And I invite you to really download the link for that. I'm sure Jeannie's probably already putting it in the notes. And put them to work. Give a listen to it, and the worksheet will come to a whole new level of understanding. And I did just find that piece of information. By the way, you can find it on our YouTube channel if you just go to YouTube and type in Michael Ryce. You'll be in our YouTube channel, and then look for Hear My Voice Book Club. And there are several sessions that we've done. And the worksheet is noted there. It was just recently. So the passage that I was talking about when I first started the show that I found was quite hilarious, and the things that people do before they come to find the actual tools for changing the mind. This person writes, well, you say there are experts who have answers. Psychiatrist, the analyst, the social worker, an astrologer. You take up religion, you get philosophy. You take Earhart's seminars. You tap yourself with EFT, you get your chakras balanced, you try some reflexology, you go to ear acupuncture, you do iridology, you get healed with lights and crystals, you meditate, you chant a mantra, you drink green tea, you try Pentecostals, you breathe in fire, you speak in tongues, you get centered, you learn NLP, you try actualizations, you work on visualizations, you study psychology, you join a Jungian group, you get Rolf, you try psychedelics, you get a psychic reading, you jog, you jazzercise, you have colonics, you get into nutrition and aerobics, hang upside down, wear psychic jewelry, get more insight, biofeedback, gestalt therapy. You go see your homeopath, your chiropractor, your naturopath. You try kinesiology. You discover your Enneagram type. You get meridians balanced. You join a consciousness raising group. You take tranquilizers. You get some hormone shots. You try cell salts. You have your minerals balanced. You pray. You implore. You beseech. You learn astral projection. You become a vegetarian. You eat only cabbage. You try macrobiotics. You go organic. You eat no GMO. You meet up with a Native American medicine man. You do a sweat lodge. You try Chinese herbs, moxa combustion, shiatsu, acupressure, feng shui. You go to India. You find a new guru. You take off your clothes. You swim in the Ganges. You stare at the sun. You shave your head. You eat with your fingers. You get really messy. You shower in cold water. You sing tribal chants. You relive past lives. You try hypnotic regression. You scream a primal scream. You punch pillows. You get Feldenkrais. You join a marriage counselor group. You go to Unity. You write affirmations. You make a vision board. You get rebirthed. You do the I Ching. You do tarot cards. You study Zen. You take more courses and workshops. You read lots of books. You do transactional analysis. You get yoga lessons. You get into the occult. You study magic. You work with karma. You take a shamanic journey. You sit under a pyramid. You read Nostradamus. You prepare for the worst. You go to retreat. You try fasting. You take amino acids. You get a negative ion generator. You join a mystery school. You learn a secret handshake. You try toning. You try color therapy. You try subliminal takes. You take brain enzymes, antidepressants, flower remedies. You go to health spas. You cook with exotic ingredients. You look into strange fermented oddities from faraway places. You go to Tibet. You hunt up a holy man. You hold hands in a circle and get high. You renounce sex and going to the movies. You wear some yellow robes. You join a cult. You try endless varieties of psychotherapy. You take wonder drugs, subscribe to lots of journals. You do the Pritikin diet. You eat just grapefruit. You get your palm read. You think New Age thought. You improve your ecology. You save the planet. You get an aura reading. You carry a crystal. You get a Hindu sidereal astrologer interpretation. You visit a trance medium. You go for sex therapy. You try tantric sex. You get blessed by Baba somebody. You join an anonymous group. You travel to Lourdes. You soak in the hot springs. You join Arika. You wear therapeutic sandals. You get ground. You get more prana and breathe out of that state of black negativity. You try golden needle acupuncture. You check out snake gallbladders. You try chakra breathing. You get your aura clean. You meditate in Cheops, the pyramid in Egypt. You and your friends have tried all the above, you say? Oh, the human. You wonderful creature. Tragic, comic, and yet so noble. Such courage to keep on searching. What drives us to keep looking for the answer? Suffering. Hope. Intuitively know that somewhere there's the ultimate answer. I thought that was pretty hilarious. The journey. Having done some of those things myself. Yes, I did go to Tibet. Yes, I did go to India. Oh dear, what fun. And all you had to do is pick up a worksheet. Now, does that mean you don't do any of those other things? No, it doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean if you're a junk food junkie, it doesn't mean you're going to get healthy eating nothing but junk food. If you do forgiveness, you'll do better than you would if you don't do forgiveness. But no, you're going to have to do something about your diet. You're going to do something about your habits. You're going to have to shift and change. But all of that will come about as a product of forgiveness. Without forgiveness, people fall into all kinds of patterns of dissociative thought and find 1,000 ways to keep their self-inflicted trauma hidden from themselves. And when you begin actually using this tool that was presented 2,000 years ago, wasn't something I made up. It wasn't something I figured out. That's for sure. I wish I'd been smart enough to figure it out. But of course, then we discovered that figuring it out is one of the pseudo-solutions, the master pseudo-solution of the non-being mind. All those things I just read in that list, they're all the things that people try as their pseudo solutions. But ultimately, if you willingly step into the practice of bringing love conscious, active, and present to your mind, and identify every situation where there is some form of upset being produced by your physiology, identify the goal that's driving that process and cancel the goal, then you'll be on the path of accessing the hidden parts of your own mind. It's a genius solution. It's when I look at all that I've done over the last 50 years on this journey, I wish somebody had handed me a forgiveness worksheet day one. Oh man, I could have saved tens of thousands of dollars and thousands of hours. Pardon me, I guess it would have to be more than just hand that to me. Hand that to me and help me to understand that this works. Inspire me to the point that I'd actually put the pen to the paper and use it. And when you do that, it just unfolds everything that needs to be unfolded. Yes, there are some corollary tools to it that we've developed that are that enhance and accelerate the forgiveness process, but that's the core of it. It's where it all happens. And if you're out there in listener land, we'd love to talk to you about it. How is your process going? What kind of things have you tried? And have you really put the pen to the paper with the worksheet?
2 comments out of the chat room. Nika
cool.
said she added when you talked about the worksheet process, and I did put that link in the notes for today, and it's also under schedules in the book club, and it's also on our YouTube channel. But she says if you have any triggers with fathers, then it's a great workshop to listen to. And then she also, after you read that piece, she said she read that for the first time last week and really got to thinking how much time she spends trying to ease her suffering, to distract or make her feel better from facing her real feelings.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, going headlong into it and going through it is the key, for sure.
And we have Miss Susan, 610. You're on the air.
Hi, folks.
Welcome, young lady.
Jeannie, thank you. Jeannie, I wanted to ask
Yes,
you,
ma'am.
I didn't hear you say about the app that it's, did you arrange it so that you can charge for it now?
No, that wasn't part of the change. We actually didn't edit any of the app. What we had to do was make it compatible to the newest Android operating system. And I got a notice, yeah. And I got a notice yesterday from Apple, and so they've got some changes coming up November 1st that we're going to be required to meet, so we'll have to do that again.
Wow. Amazing.
But no, this time we didn't actually make any changes to the app itself. We just had to make it compatible to the newest operating systems.
Yeah. Well, it's such a good little gizmo. I know you said there are reasons for not charging for it, and they're complicated, and they want part of it and all this. If it ended up working right, though, you would make some money. I wish you could get compensated for all that work. You know, anyway,
Understand.
It's none of my business.
I hear you.
But I just keep thinking of it. I don't exactly know how. This is a testimonial, I guess. My experience with the wake-up sheet now has become that I use it in conjunction with a mind shifter or just plain journal writing. And we've had a kind of a breakthrough with Michael here, our Michael here.
Awesome.
We've been putting, well, I know it is awesome. We've been putting in applications for him for housing, some in Florida and some nearby here in Pennsylvania. And he's been not very excited about any of it. And I've been kind of acting like his nanny or mother or something, making sure that they get done and sent out. And we got him, Tim and I found him 2 little gigs that are ongoing, one week and one the next week, playing oldies for old people, and they love it. And Tim Bingham went with him. Tim has to drive him because we don't have our second car, but he had time, and he went, and he stayed, and he said it was phenomenally good. He said Michael is an entire different person when he's up there. He becomes...
He's up there doing his purpose.
Yeah, but what happens afterward, it's as if he disappears. There's not much person otherwise except a kind of a shadow self. And that isn't to say he isn't helpful with our little animals and hanging a wash. I did a wash this morning, went down to hang it up in the basement, and it was all hung up. So I thought, well,
remember,
what?
Remember last week when you were talking about what Tim had to say to you when you were teaching?
Yeah.
That you disappear? And my input was, no, that's when the real you's showing up. My offering is that's what you're seeing with Michael when he's up there playing. He's showing up. He's doing his purpose.
Right.
You know, maybe sharing that with Michael, you know, getting Tim to share his observation of how different he is, and maybe helping him to recognize that when he's in touch with his purpose and doing it, that's when he comes alive, when that's where his power is. And, you know, I've heard you speak of the amount of fear that he has and trauma he's had. Remember that line in the chorus that says, in my defenselessness, my power and safety lie. Maybe that would be a vehicle for him to recognize, because he's got to experience the difference when he's up there playing, when his fears and his defenses melt away, and when he's not got that power flowing through him, it sounds like his defenses and his fears, his past traumas run the show. That might be a gateway to helping him to open that. And, you know, maybe even doing the purpose worksheet with him might help give him some insight into how he can tap into his real power. Because it sounds like he does it very well when he gets up there to perform, like he can let the non-being self go and just rock the house.
Well, that would be the idea. He does know that. He says that's who I really am. He says I really interact with people. Well, actually, he's not. I don't think he's really interacting with them because he doesn't make friends. But he says that. He says we banter and we exchange jokes, and people are responding to me, and some of them got up and danced. One of them is a memory unit. So these people have dementia, and yet they'll dance, and they'll sing along with him if they know the song.
Right.
And he loves that. And he did say, this is what I should be doing, which is like you just said. This is his purpose. However, he said to me, he finally said, the reason I drag my feet about these applications is I don't think I can live in a room. I've got to live in a car so I can drive around and get gigs, because I can't have gigs if I can't move around, and I don't have money for a room and a car. And I have to make money under the table because Social Security will dry right up the amount I get. They'll take it away if I make $200. They'll I'll be punished for working, which is a terrible mistake in our system, and I don't know how you'd fix that.
Crazy. Yeah.
That's a whole other thing to talk about. But it finally hit me that I haven't been frustrated with Michael because he's here. I've been afraid that we've been hurting him because the more he's been here, the less he has done, to the point where he hasn't been doing his purpose, as you put it, at all. So
right.
I said, Michael, I want to readjust our deal. I get it that you don't want to roam. And he wrote to me so many, if only, but, yes, but, I can't do this and I can't do that. And you both know how frustrating that can be if you get an idea and they shoot it down because of some resistance somewhere, and there's a ton of that. In any case, I said to him that for me, it's been very painful to see him lie so fallow and feeling as if maybe we're hurting him rather than keeping him here. And he finally wrote me the sweetest letter about how he has felt safe here. He hasn't felt safe in years, how he saved the life, we saved the life of his dog, which we did. I mean, I don't know if the dog would have died, but it was a serious vet bill, and he couldn't have gotten the dog there, and he was terribly anxious about this animal on and on. But I realized that I'd feel better about his being here if he were working, but we don't have a car for him at the moment, but Tim can take him around. What we're doing is we're gradually, and the tools are like keeping me on track, because the extremes of frustration and anger, and then I'll feel a glimmer of love
that you
for the
get
guy.
to heal.
Yeah, and then it goes back and forth, and it's been like a yo-yo. And Dr. Tim told me to practice micro-affections with myself. I've been practicing them. It's a great idea. I can manage a few of those. But I finally, Tim and I figured, as long as we are here, Michael can live here if he will get out there and get some gigs, and we will help him do that. Now, today it's like the old days. He's down there watching TV on his little teeny computer, and nothing seems to be happening again. But I think we have a little bit of insight into how we can stay happy about his being here, is to start researching old people's homes around here and having him work up a nice resume and get back out, and then he'd be making enough money to buy a van, and then he would probably take off just because he's terrified of the winter here. You know why he's afraid of the winter here? Because his tiny blind dog won't have a place to pee, and he has to dig a patch in the green yard and put the smell of dog urine on it so the dog will know it's a place to go. And he's very, very, very anxious about that, which I have to translate that into my things. Yeah, what?
Yeah. Of course, he's not anxious about that at all, but he's got this anxiety disorder that he can put it anywhere on anything, including the dog having a place to pee. And, maybe one day he'll get that. One other thought I'd throw in here, maybe, even if it was just, somebody with their cell phone, were to video him doing one of these gigs, and the fun that he creates, the excitement that he creates, they could be attached to his application to residential facilities. And I bet, when I think about where Jeannie's dad was when we couldn't handle him anymore, when he was a two-person transfer and there was just no way to do it in this house.
Yeah.
I think they would have loved to have had a resident. I mean, they every once in a while would bring an entertainer in, but I would think they would have loved to have had a resident that, 3 days a week, part of their payment for being there was they played some music for everybody and got that sort of thing going. That sounds like it might, open, every door, that he'd have a safe home, that he'd have warmth, he'd have companionship, he'd have friends that he can interact with and play with, he can do his purpose, and maybe even have his dog there.
Yeah, I asked him about that, because these places might well want to make that arrangement, but he said he didn't want to do that. He has his reasons. I can, every new place he goes might look appealing to him, and we can bring up the subject again and see whether that might be a good place for him to be. He is, approaching 70. It isn't as if he's going to have all his generators going for a long, long time. He needs a safe, permanent home.
Right. Yep. I hear you.
So
I hear you. I'll hold the space for him.
Thanks. Well, I wasn't even going to call in because it's not that interesting a story, but the tools are my friend, and they're just keeping the intention to hold love active and present is huge.
Yes, and giving yourself microaffection is an awesome, great idea too.
Yeah, it is.
Even if it's just for a second or two here and there until the habit becomes ingrained. That's an awesome idea. Thank you, Dr.
I
Tim.
think so too. Yeah, it's a good idea, pre-commitment in the mirror type of thing. I'm not ready to do that flat out, but this is possible.
Wait a minute. I didn't quite understand. What was that about the mirror? That you're not ready?
We should do a commitment in the mirror, put one hand on your heart mirror and one hand on your own mirror, and say the loving things that you might say to a partner or something to yourself.
And you haven't done that. Are you? Oh, cool.
I gave it a few.
You deserve it.
A few tries.
Well, you could maybe do it in micro moments.
Yeah. When I
maybe just
mirror,
every time you pass the mirror, you could give a glance, and there you go. There you go. Hey, you're pretty good looking.
Right. Yes. Anyway, it's a small report, but it's good to have a plan that's better than, because when I suggested Michael get out there and put his resume together and get out there, he just says, "You want me to leave? I'm in the way." It's a huge escalation to being thrown out again. I said, this has nothing to do with that. We've never mentioned that. But anyway, so it's...
But it sounds like it's always in his mind. Doesn't take much to trigger it into activity.
Yep, it is. So, and Michael, I do have a question. He says he is on the spectrum as an autistic man. I don't get the sense of that by... anything that he does particularly, but he said, nobody gets me. I don't speak anybody's language. I'm sorry I don't speak well with you, which isn't the case. I've never noticed a problem. And I said that. I said, you do fine. And he said, that's because I'm working at it so hard. But if I just acted like myself, you wouldn't know what to make of me, and you'd probably not want me around. I make jokes that nobody gets, except when I'm on the stage and the audience is in a certain mood. I can make these jokes, and he told me one of them, and I'll tell it to you. And he said, you failed. I told you a joke, and you didn't like it. The joke was, I love to play in the leaves and hide in there, and then my dad can roll over me with the motor lawnmower, the big lawnmower. It was a joke about getting shredded under the leaves. And I had an unduly severe reaction to that because I had a friend get run over. She was hiding in the leaves in a gutter, and the car parked there. And I explained to him that was not the greatest. And he said, well, but I've proven my point. And I'm talking like me. I can't even replicate how he talks. But and then he'll get going, and like me right now, he won't be able to stop. He'll tell me all the famous people he's worked with, all the famous places he's been, how he had this business and that business and was successful here. He keeps trying to tell me that he's gifted and okay and capable. And it's not a dialogue, it's a recitation. So, I'm telling you,
and
that's
I think
a challenge.
I think that's one of the sets of symptoms that goes with being on the spectrum too.
Oh, you think so?
There's a different brain just works differently. Yeah. And you don't have the Avis in there now, do you? Susan? Hello? Well, sounds like we lost the young lady.
Yeah, she just called back in. So you're back on, Susan.
Okay, I got these fancy hearing aids that if I touch my ear, I hang up.
Okay. But
I just hung up on you.
You don't have the Avis in there now, do you?
No, Gina's got
Okay.
the use of her hand back. Yeah.
Yeah, she actually called me the other day and told me that. That's pretty awesome. Her hand was pretty much non-functional, and she's got it back totally.
Yeah.
But
she loves it.
One of the things they've found with the Avicen is it really helps people that are on the spectrum.
Really? Oh, you mentioned that before about Jacob doing it. Jacob says, I told that to him, and he says, don't you remember that I used it when I was at your house? And I said, no, I don't remember. He said, yeah. Well, he used it only a couple of times, and he says it didn't do a thing. Well, he should use it, but he isn't there, So.
Yeah. Well, holding the space, dear heart.
Thanks. Yeah.
All right. Well, any other thoughts for you today?
No. Thanks so much for listening to all that.
Delighted. Glad to hear things are moving forward in terms of the challenges, the gifts he's giving you to bring your healing up, and the gifts you're giving him. It's pretty awesome that he's got that. Sounds like otherwise it's a pretty tragic and traumatic world for him.
Oh, yeah, it is. Okay, Michael, thanks.
All right. You have a blessed one. We appreciate you.
Okay, thanks, Michael. Okay, bye.
All right. Bye-bye. All right, Miss Jeannie. Well, we're down to about the last 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'll
Do
just
we have
add,
anybody else out there?
No, there's nobody else. I was working with a gentleman the other day, and he was talking about, whether he was being successful in doing all the work and things like that. And then he remembered going to a business meeting that morning and that his staff was even like, okay, what's going on with this guy? So I said, just little things like that shows your success. You can't compare yourself to other people or, to where you're wanting to be, small things that you're creating a difference. And we had a hand just now go up. So we have a couple minutes. Doug, 314, you're on the air.
Hello, Michael. I'm seeing through the filter of a worksheet right now, but listening to Susan and wondering if maybe, I'm going to offer that, since we only have a minute, that what I'm seeing is that perhaps there's all of these efforts to cover up a deep hidden sense that he is not valuable, is not worthy, is always wrong, isn't worthy to stay in the house, all of this about who he's worked for and what he's done, and then this extreme sensitivity to any suggestion that he's not good enough, or he even makes up that he's not good enough to stay there if he doesn't do something right, that if there could be a forgiveness process to open the veil on his deep doubts about his value, that might be something to look towards. Anyway, I'm doing a worksheet. From your earlier thing, I know we're out of time, but when you were talking about forgiveness, I just became highly triggered. Like, okay, what is this? So it's related. It's like, oh, is there any future, of delight in my life from here? And it's just, I think it's contributing to my pain, my headache all day, the long COVID thing, all of that. So on that worksheet, and that's all I had to say in the minute or two that we have. So thank you for the work and for your offering, and good luck to Susan with Michael, with her, whatever his name was. I think it was Michael. Anyway.
It is, yeah. Well, I'll join you in that, holding that space for both of them.
Thank you. Doing so for all of us.
Take care.
All right. Bye.
Okay. Blessings. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Have the best year yet of your eternal life. It's an awesome